So I did want to get started to, as everybody is kind of jumping in here, and thank you for jumping into our where we normally have a study group. I figured this was a convenient place to meet. Some of you are in here on a regular basis, and some not so much. So I do want to encourage all of you, first of all, if you're not in the study group, you all make great leaders to be part of a study group. So that's my shameless plug to get started. And it's exciting. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but on my LinkedIn profile, some of you have actually responded to it, celebrating my 8 years with Kingdom Advisors officially. So January 2017
Nice.
is when I technically started with Kingdom Advisors, and technically, I guess, when Kingdom Advisors came into Canada. But as most of you know, Kingdom Advisors was creeping in even before that time. And Lauren Jackson and Canadian National Christian Foundation, welcome Lauren to the call, has laid a tremendous foundation for us. The work he has done to establish the network has helped us, I think, get off to a good start, if I will say so myself, a good start in building this network. All of you have also played a significant role as champions, and we do now have about 25 champions in Canada. Those who have stepped up and said, okay, we believe in this and we're going to support this work, and not just say we support it, but actually put your money where your mouth is. And you have done that. And I have felt that heartfelt support. I've really felt it. And we've had three in the last, believe it or not, I don't know if we can keep up this track record or not, but in the last 3 months, we have had three new champions come on board. So that's pretty exciting. But we have had almost every year, we've had 3 or 4 new champions join the ranks. And usually champions stay on board and continue to stay engaged. So that's quite exciting to see. So I wanted to do this year, kind of bring you a bit of an update as to where we are. I wanted you to hear from some of the champions as well. By the way, just as a housekeeping thing, if you can't see everyone in your screen, just go right to the bottom left and select gallery view. That's where you bring everybody in if you're not able to see everyone. So I'm excited about our conference coming up. Many of you are headed to that conference in Florida. And we're going to have, I think the last I look, there were over 45 registered from Canada. And I know Jonathan's team at Eastport has really stepped up to bring his team there. So there's a good group of Atlantic Canadians going to be there from Eastport, that's for sure. But there are also 15 champions that are attending. So that's going to be great. Make sure you are registered if you're not already for the Canadian breakfast. And I'm going to say Canadian and international if you know other internationals, because there is also a bit of a move afoot to expand the reach of Kingdom Advisors. And there's some of you who definitely have a vision to bring it across the pond, if you will. And I know Colin in the UK is a regular part of one of our study groups. So yeah, so the conference is coming up. The other thing I wanted to mention to you as well is the one-day conference. And since COVID, we have pretty well gone to a regional event model. And every spring, we have done some travel, typically BC, Alberta, so Langley. and Calgary or Edmonton, and then Toronto. This year, we're doing something a little different. We're kind of reverting back to what we have done in previous years and just have one conference. So we're doing that in conjunction with the Spark conference, which Jonathan is organizing and putting some funds into that and bringing some great speakers in for that event. That's happening on Friday, May 30th. We are doing our event on May 29th. I have a meeting just after this one where hopefully we're going to get a lot closer to launching our registration page. But I think having our event in conjunction with the Spark event, which is really I guess a business leaders, Christian business leaders event, which I know all of Kingdom Advisors are really Christian business leaders. Some of the speakers are speakers that are a great overlap for us as well. So we are going to do our event starting in the afternoon and run it into the evening. So that is also going to be a volunteer dinner for the Spark conference. So a couple of the speakers, I think, are going to share just a little bit at our dinner, which is the closing of our Kingdom Advisors one-day event and really the beginning of the Spark conference that starts the next day. So that's my encouragement there. Jonathan, did you want to say anything in relation to the Spark conference in regards to speaker lineup and so on? Because you know exactly who's coming.
Yeah, I mean, sure. It's something we feel really compelled to do. This will actually be our third Spark conference. Ironically, the first one was in Charleston with a different mandate, but we did Moncton last May, and it was just absolutely Holy Spirit filled. We were over capacity. I was begging and pleading that the Lord would intercede and stop fire marshals from breaking up our party. So that for me was confirmation that we were definitely onto something. Alan Barnhart was one of our speakers, not even a keynote, and he just absolutely destroyed people when it came to their worldview of money and who owns their company and what kind of response they should be having to what Christ did on the cross for each of us. So we felt very encouraged and said, yeah, let's keep going. Moncton was a lower risk effort. Eastport is definitely backing Toronto to the tune of 150 grand, succeed or fail. But I don't have any fears or worries about that. I think we're approaching 200 tickets sold out of 450 already, and they've been on sale for 3 weeks. And I feel like the buzz is just getting going. And we have half the conference costs covered by sponsors already. All the radio stations around Toronto are already broadcasting and getting involved, the Christian radio stations. And our speaker lineup is really, again, a totally Holy Spirit infused lineup. John Reinhardt said he couldn't make it. He's committed to do Calgary, which we already have planned for May of 2026. I'm even thinking about doing Calgary and Vancouver back to back, like a Thursday, Friday, take a break Saturday, and then keep going Sunday, Monday in Vancouver. But John Reinhardt will be speaking at that one. But in the meantime, I've got John Davenport. I don't know if you saw the movie that Gospel Patrons released on him and his wife Naya, but it's phenomenal. It's on the link on our webpage. If you haven't watched it, it's 45 minutes. I would definitely encourage you to watch it. We also have Pete Oakes coming. Anybody who's done a Journey of Generosity would know Pete Oakes, but he's just a phenomenal business leader and really thought leader around gospel patronage and who owns it and what are we doing in response, to what God's given us and entrusted us with. Really every speaker is of the same caliber, and they've all agreed to converge on Toronto for that day and just pour into the Christian business leader community. So the basis of it is gospel patronage, marketplace ministry, but it's not just limited to business. We have Ryan Walter, who will talk about business and sports. Stockwell Day is going to be speaking and really dispelling any myths that we might have around Christian nationalism versus what it means to be a believer in politics in Canada, and really show up and try and be salt and light, Matthew 5:13-16, and the list goes on. So we've tried to really season it with Canadian speakers and U.S. speakers, but the fact is we do need those U.S. speakers because they're doing, teaching, and engaging in things that really we're not doing at large in Canada. So we feel really compelled to bring that message to the doorstep of Canadians. We've basically committed, myself, and I don't know if Glenn Murray's on here or not, but he's signed up to back me on this as well. So Calgary and Vancouver will go forward. There's a lot of people begging me to bring it back to the Maritimes already. So we might do Halifax in 2027. But we're just really following the Lord's lead on this. This is not in any way, shape, or form to promote esport. You will not see any disproportionate amount of promotion there. Esport is a sponsor, like many, but this is absolutely about glorifying the Lord and really wrestling with the hearts of Christian business leaders. So for the KA advisors, I would definitely encourage you to bring some of your clients that you're trying to disciple in this area. Journey of Generosity will be there, and people will be able to sign up for a jog depending on where they are in the country. But I know that MJ and Sarah Jajor are getting trained for jogs in Calgary. Obviously, Tim Jenkins and Ethan and a few of the guys are doing them in Ontario, and we're doing them in Eastern Canada. So if people really feel like they've been challenged, the goal is not to just have a conference and be done with it. It's just start to create an ecosystem that hopefully leads to reformation in the Christian business environment in our country.
Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. And if this works well, fits the model of Kingdom Advisors for us in Canada, we will probably end up doing the same thing we're doing in Toronto this year, is piggybacking an event. So in Calgary next year, Vancouver the following year, which would be really great, which would mean those in the GTA would have to travel somewhere to attend our event.
So, like us Maritimers do every time, Lauren.
Correct. I know when Lauren Jackson was doing the events, I probably was the only one from Atlantic Canada, definitely the only one from Newfoundland that was flying in for that. So if you engage and become a part of this, then there is a willingness to invest and be part of what God is doing. And that's, I think, a big motivation to come to these events. So I also wanted to highlight something that has happened this year, this past year, I guess I should say, which is Ron Blue's visit to Toronto. And I think that was significant for a couple of reasons. We did a mastermind leading up to that event, which some of you participated in, and I think the results coming out of that were very positive, a bit of building of community, and also the thought of mobilizing Kingdom Advisors, maybe even particularly champions in Canada, to do something for the greater good and God's kingdom. The other thing that came out of it that many of you may not know is a visit to Redeemer University. And I was not aware when I went to Toronto that for those few days that I was going to visit Redeemer University either. But Ron Blue asked if I would come, and getting there and having the conversation quickly made me realize it was important that I be part of the call, because there were lots of questions about the CKA in Canada, how it was currently happening, and Ron or Russ Gonzalez, who's the CEO of RBI, would not have been able to answer that question at all. And there was a point in the meeting where I was like, guys, I'm Canadian. I appreciate the questions, but we got two specialists here from the US. Direct some questions their way. But it was interesting indeed, because they were asking the questions because of a genuine interest in advancing this, and what are the possibilities that the CKA could be offered in Canada. So here's one of the big differences. When you go to the conference in Florida, you see so many students running around. We are not seeing that, at least at this point, in Canada. And if I could leave a legacy with my years at Kingdom Advisors, I would love it to be that the younger generation is coming into this industry, studying biblical financial wisdom, and coming into this industry to take over the books of business that currently are in the hands of Christian financial advisors like yourselves. And so the conversation went very, very well. I did have a follow-up conversation with Dr. Sophia Kuzik, and she's the Dean of Business, I believe, at the school, and is very keen on establishing this. And so one of the questions was, what's the difference in the program in the US versus Canada? And one of the big differences is the case study. There's a case study in the US that they all walk through, and you have to advise on that case study from a biblical perspective based on all of the modules that we walk through. And there are about 20 modules. So part of that case study, of course, is a will. It's a tax return. So obviously a US tax return is really of no benefit for us here in Canada. So a tax return or a case study would have to be Canadianized. And I was like kind of mystified about all of this. Anyway, talking to Sophia, she said, I could actually write this case study and get it published at the Ivy School of Business. And I was like, wow. So that honestly very much excited me about the possibility, because where do you go to get something like this written so that it's written not just from a financial planning perspective, but from an academic perspective as well. So that was very exciting. So I would ask you to continue to pray about that and what could potentially come out of that. And if you have connections at Redeemer University, then absolutely join in prayer and even communication back and forth. If you are able to bring something to the table, that would be absolutely amazing. So if we could just go to, let me bring Steve in on the conversation now. And I do want to leave a little bit of time at the end for a little bit of conversation. Maybe if you have a question or two, that would be fine as well. We can explore some of the things that are happening in Canada and how we might do some things in Canada that are not currently happening. So I had a conversation with Steve Fox a little while ago, and he shared with me, because I did notice an extra donation came through at the end of the year supporting Kingdom Advisors. So I was curious about what prompted this. I kind of suspected what prompted it, but I was curious. So Steve, I'd love for you to share what happened and a quick little story on that.
Yeah, first of all, when you talk about legacy, maybe my attitude has developed over time. It's interesting, in the more Bible study that I've done, the more reading that I've done, the more that I have consulted with people who are a few steps ahead of me in this world. And I don't have any intention of retiring. I'm turning 66. I'm having probably more fun now in this business than I've ever had before. And so and this will sort of fit into some of the other things that I'm about to say. I just signed up to do my CEA, Certified Estate Planning Advisor. And I am in the process of doing a micro MBA on estate planning. because I want to be able to be empowered to go teach to the church on these issues. And it has the potential of obviously benefiting the church if people so choose to leave or give money towards the church or towards kingdom initiatives. So anyway, I just set that foundation. I'm not discouraging you, Lauren, from whatever the legacy is going to be, because you're doing an awesome job. Lauren Jackson paved the way for you, and we're grateful for everything that you do. So what happened last year, as I am reading through Money, Possessions, and Eternity by Randy Alcorn. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. Then Jonathan introduced me to Pete Oakes, and I'm also at the same time reading his A High Impact Life. Between those two books, I thought I was a reasonable way down the road. I'm just getting crushed by these two books. It really challenges your thinking on, why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my mission? What is my calling? And so I'd highly recommend both of those books. Anyway, as I'm reading through these two books, I'm thinking about what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And obviously we work in finance, and the ability to give is high on the list. And as I got right to the end of the year and was contemplating this, I had a piece of compensation come to me from something that I arranged 3 years ago that I had long forgotten, that I had no idea about, wasn't thinking about. And right close to the end of the year, this compensation just arrives in my bank account, and I'm like, whoa. Because as I was focused on what can I do, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do, all of a sudden it was just like God whispered in my ear, if you want to do something, here you go, have some cash. And then I had the ability to turn around and give some more towards Kingdom Advisors, which is very high on my list of things that I want to support. So it was truly miraculous, and God's timing was really good as I'm going through these continual mind shifts about, what is my calling? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to focus on? And if you read Pete Oakes' book, you'll see it isn't just about giving. It's going way, way beyond that, where we truly wrap our heads around, we own nothing. God owns everything, and we are stewards and will be accountable for the management of what we were entrusted with. And I think I'm taking that way more seriously today than I've ever taken in the past. And it's been a really, really enjoyable journey, if you don't mind getting crushed.
Very good. And you attended the mastermind that we did, which is your second mastermind with KA, one at the forum, but you attended in Toronto as well. And something has come out of that is quite interesting, which is really the idea that I mentioned about mobilizing Kingdom Advisors in Canada. We've had some conversations since that time about even becoming an ambassador of the Ron Blue Institute. So, Steve, I don't know if you wanted to just a sentence or two about that, because that seemed to be pretty significant coming out of that event.
It really was. We had a great opportunity to sit with Ron for a few minutes and talk about this and our heart's desire about educating the church on biblical financial stewardship principles. Primarily, it was Matt and I who had the great opportunity to sit with Ron and Ron's CEO and talk through these things. And there was this tremendous excitement on Ron's face as he described what he felt was the third leg of a stool coming together to be able to effectively take biblical financial stewardship wisdom to the church. And that was mobilizing Kingdom Advisors to be able to go to their church or other churches and be able to educate the church on this. And so we talked through how this might happen. And the Ron Blue Institute is the educational arm and the resource for us, along with some other resources. And both Matt and I were like gung ho, like we need to do this, and we need to do this now. So I went and talked to a bunch of churches. I talked to the pastors. I explained to them we have no interest in obtaining any of your congregants as clients. We will not solicit your people. We are here to serve, and we're committed to this process. And here's how we would like to start, and will that work for you? And the response was phenomenal. So I think I have 7 churches so far who are now waiting for us to disseminate some of this. And so between Ron and his CEO and Matt and I, we've decided to start with short little sort of Q&A, commonly asked questions about biblical financial stewardship that we will then send to the churches. RBI is going to provide the content for us, and we will send to the churches, which they can either put up on their screens or put in their bulletins, that will allow all their congregants to view some of these little snippets of commonly asked questions and good biblical financial stewardship wisdom. Ultimately, beyond that, we've talked with RBI about where could we go from here. And the first piece was that if you have a CKA, you can make application to RBI, which we have done. And so they've accredited us, so to speak, as a senior, what did they call it?
Senior ambassador?
Yeah, senior ambassador of RBI. And they have a package that we will then be able to take to the pastors or to the boards that explains what it is, how we're trying to serve them. And so we're getting closer and closer to what ultimately I would love to be or love to have, which is the accreditation of a finance pastor rather than a CFP, so that we can truly come to the church from a purely educational servant point of view. And so we're started down that road. Hopefully within the next little while, we'll be able to open that up to any CKAs who are interested, and hopefully Matt and I will have paved the way for you.
Yeah, and that's interesting because not every CKA will have the same passion or interest, because I think this is something that requires a calling and a spurring on from the Lord, if you will. And so maybe the timing is not necessarily right for every CKA to kind of jump into this, but I think there is a certain level of excitement and call that can come with this. Matt, I think Steve covered it very well, but is there anything you'd like to add about the vision around this whole thing?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm encouraged to see how God is building out the faith-based finance ecosystem through these various initiatives as the macro umbrella of Spark conferences and Kingdom Advisor events and this little faith-based advice initiative to the church, where these things are just Holy Spirit led in every single way. And I guess I'll just add to the story where we were doing the Champions Mastermind group, and we were just working on how do we collaborate more, and this little idea of, man, how just a monthly distribution that churches can sign up to. Like, how do we magnify this KA network where it's not a huge amount of effort for a Kingdom Advisor to go ask their church to get added to a distribution list that goes to their congregation, right? So that the church can just start being fed with biblical advice. So it doesn't end up being a huge undertaking, but rather a huge magnification of Kingdom Advisors across North America, all just going to the church and getting the church signed up on their distribution list, so that 4,000 Kingdom Advisors across North America, go to 4,000 churches that each have 1,000 members, and 4 million people are now getting a once a month Q&A video of 5 to 10 minutes from what started as, champions from Canada. But within a couple hours, we had spoken with Ron, and he's like, guys, I have a video content library of 200 of these videos you can start with. And in 10 years time, when you run out, you can start coming up with your own, or just recirculate. We have all this content. So it's just using what we have. And when Ron was sharing his vision of, even though he arrived 3 hours late and was tired, and we had just had this discussion of, wow, like this could actually be something that with a little bit of effort, not a lot, and a little bit of resources, not a lot, like nobody's having to overcommit to anything in any way, shape, or form, whether it's dollars or time or anything of that nature. But this could really impact the whole of North America. And then Ron rolls in and he's like, guys, I started out and my first objective was to get Kingdom Advisors recognized in the academic world. And now it's recognized across most academic institutions in America alongside the CFP. And then I went down the road of feeling like I needed to get it recognized by Wall Street. And it's mostly accepted across all major firms in North America, including a lot in Canada. And he mentioned on his heart, he's like, I feel like it's time, and the last 50 years of my life is culminating in taking this to the church, that it's all ready now. And it just seemed to align with what we had just had, this minor epiphany of not a huge amount of effort, but we do have to go and do it. So it would just be packaging, mobilizing KA to go and get churches signed up on a distribution list so that congregations would get a 5 to 10 minute little study of something to do with faith-based finance, and then multiple levels of other things that already exist that can be in that email distribution, like FaithFi, right? Just a line in there that says, hey, if you want to be on a daily KA podcast, sign up to FaithFi. It's free, right? And RBI having their courses. So if there's somebody in the church that wanted to do the RBI course in more detail with their congregation, hey, sign up for that. And then jogs. Jogs are free. Like, it is independently funded. It's such a great curriculum. So you've got this really easy format of getting churches signed up. They don't have to give up their distribution list. They just have to put their distribution list on the mailing list. And there's content that can go out, and it just takes the 4,000 odd KAs to go and just get their church signed up. Right.
I think that's it's interesting. And I will say that it's sometimes getting into churches has proven to be significantly challenging and discouraging. I've been there, done that, tried it. So here's what I would suggest is we're all in churches. So I think making the approach within your church, and Felicia, I didn't give you any heads up on this, but I'd love for you to just share briefly about what you did in your church with your pastor, which I think it's pretty significant. We're not hearing you. Your mic is somehow not working. You might have to exit and jump back in, or unless you can get it working, that would be great. So yeah, I love to hear from Felicia because of what I know she's been able to do in her church with a group of people. So this is all exciting. Felicia, are you here? Okay, Ian.
So one thing that we could think about doing, Steve and Matt and whoever else, is leveraging lessons from the hot dog eating champion to make it easier to get access to the churches. So I don't have time right now to share the story with the hot dog eating champion, unless, Lauren, you think we have time. But I think there's something we could learn from him about making it easier to get access to the church's distribution lists. I think that could be helpful.
That is good.
I just want to throw in, of the churches that I've talked to, I have told the pastors, I don't need access to your distribution list. I just need to know whether you're willing to get this information to your congregation in some way, shape, or form. And so Matt and I have talked about the easiest possible way for that to happen. And the other part of the agreement on the application with RBI is actually that we present to the pastors that we will not solicit. And this, I've found that this has really let their guard down, where they're like, oh, okay, so you just want to educate and you're not going to promote yourself and you're not coming to look for clients. And the answer is yes, that we are not. And I have found that that has gone quite well.
We are formulating like an official strategy, which we need to connect on again. But just how to get, and part of that is being an RBI ambassador, right? Rather than a financial advisor. And having the content like the jogs and like being an RBI ambassador where we are not allowed to solicit clients. Like we're not there representing that. And I think
you will find as part of the code of ethics with KA as well. It's any presentation like that is not about your own gain and your own interest. So that is already part of KA as well. So
yeah, and even getting to the point where us as financial advisors, we don't want to go stand on the stage because we have to go and get regulatory approval for that. Like that's not something we're actually even allowed to do. Like it's a bit of a pain in the butt, but pointing the senior pastor to a web page that has a video on it that he can play on a Sunday morning when he introduces it, we can do that, right? A web page is $100 a month, single web page, get a professional video done, and off we go. It gets used across North America, kind of like Journey of Generosity, like generous giving, where it's not a complex page where churches can sign up. There's even a contract when they sign up, right? Like we're not going to use this distribution list for any marketing. It's going to be one email a month. This is what it's going to have in it. And that's it, right? Functioning kind of as a non-for-profit, just so it locks all of that conflict of interest out.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Do it very simply. But anyway,
Yes,
the details could take forever to discuss, but
exactly. And we don't want to get bogged down in the details. So
Right.
Thanks very much. Felicia, I think
Hi,
we can hear you
me
now.
now? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to share. So with my church, which I'm involved in various capacity, I'm on the board. I, am in various leadership roles over the years. And so my pastor had shared actually quite a lot of, I think it's helpful nuggets about his concern for something. There's the desire for biblical financial equipping is obviously there. However, it is, the concern of how does he as a pastor verify the competency and the character of someone who approaches him and says, I want to teach on biblical financial planning. And how does he know that it's, this person's not going to fleece the flock, as he called it. So I think that, I first introduced CKA and what CKA is, and ended up sharing with him the curriculum from CKA. And then from there, we actually sat down and built the curriculum largely based on Ron Blue's materials from CKA. And I delivered it live for several campuses. So I go to Coastal Church. We have about 3,000 members in Vancouver and about now 8 campuses. And so it became very apparent to me that I did it at 1 location, 2 locations, 3 locations, and then it was starting to be a lot. And I was very nervous about the people that would come up and say, can you help me? Because I couldn't probably take on everyone as clients. And so I think that in addition to the materials being presented, he was also thinking about, who who would then serve the congregation after that. As a financial planner, could you take on people? And I didn't necessarily have capacity to take on everybody that had questions, nor were they a good fit. So I think that some of the questions that the pastor may have, I think it's introducing the material, but then who do they go to afterwards if they have a financial planning question? So it's been on my heart to have a KA community in the church, but that has not yet materialized over time. I'm kind of the person that, anyone has a question, I reserve some time to office hours, if you will, if people have questions, and they can come to me and ask those questions. But I put in the chat there what we ended up doing so that I don't have to show up every year or every 6 months and deliver a new workshop, is we ended up filming a video with a video team, with the pastor teaching part of it. I teach a part of it. And so I put it on the link there. And so then now this is being shown as part of the leadership development, part of, if anyone has biblical, is asking for biblical financial planning training, then they actually just send the video out to them. So I don't know who watches it, but it's been very effective just from a time perspective. So certainly I think from the pastor's perspective, I think there is, just because I go to the church and have been involved in the church, so there was a level of trust. And my brother is a pastor in the church. And so I think there's a level of trust with character. But yeah, some of the questions that come up is to him, he said that actually he was very uncomfortable talking about biblical finances because it, could always come across as, oh, of course you're going to say that you're looking for tithes, right? So he did say that it's so helpful to have members from the financial planning community talk about what we talk about, because then it's not coming necessarily from the church that, oh, is this, the underlying motive? Is it to get more? Do you have a campaign going? Are you, are you looking for some ties? Is that why we're running this course? So he does feel that, the call is to the financial planning professionals to step up and say, you know what, if you donate to the church, I'm not necessarily benefiting from it, but he said it's so helpful to partner with the community. But so then CKA is great, because then he feels that he can trust someone who has a CKA to come to the church and offer that level of service, because it's been vetted independently, in terms of competency and character. But otherwise, the church does get approached by people saying, hey, can I do a course on this, that, or the other? And he said that, yeah, it's just very nervous for them to open that up, right? Because they just have no way of verifying competency or even character, even if that member happens to be attending the church and whatnot. So I think what Steve, you and Matt are doing, I think that it would be incredible, as a resource to churches. But I do think that what comes following that maybe is encouraging the church to identify financial planning professionals or someone who can be vetted through the CKA program. Then they can actually follow up with implementation, because often with the materials, what I found initially delivering it was people then go, okay, now what do I do next? Now that I know this, I want to do it, but I bring it to my financial planner and they have they're asking like, oh, like, why do you want to do that? So there's a lack of values alignment. So I do think that along with the RBI program, it would be fantastic to say, here's where you go to have this implemented for you and your family and for your business following from that. I think that would be that might be some of the questions that come up from the congregation afterwards. It's then, what does that mean if I do my TFSA and RSP and know the specific implementation things? They often are lacking somebody who can then align that with their values, compared to who they might currently have.
Yeah.
Thank you, Felicia. Now, I got to try and moderate this, because I do have John who desires to speak, and I've also asked Ryan to share as well. So Ryan is out of BC and I don't know how many of you have met Ryan before. Some of you probably have. I love his heart and his passion, and he's had a transition in his life. that has led him in a little different path. So, Ryan, I just want you to take just 2 minutes to kind of talk about that and share what's happening in your life now.
Sure. Thank you. In September of 2022, I had a cardiovascular event, and my doctor and my cardiologist and neurologist said, "You're done. You're done work," and that was a very quick end to a 35-year career. And fortunately, we had a succession plan in place, and I worked at a big five brokerage firm, and everything moved very smoothly. And honestly, God needed to do that to call me into a ministry of working with missionaries or global workers, as they're being called now. And Kingdom Advisors and Ron Blue and everything that you guys are doing is perfectly in line with helping these global workers. They need the help, and no one in this profession can afford to give them a lot of time. So I'm very pleased to report that we've helped over 50 families so far in the last 2 years. We have done, I think, maybe 4 or 5 seminars, just basic financial planning 101 type sessions. And I'm really excited about the ability to connect with some of the younger missionaries that are just getting ready to go out in the field. And so as I'm listening to Steve and Matt and Felicia and others, there's some overlap there, and there's some teaching that these missionaries need. It can be very complex. Some of them have surprisingly complex issues, but a lot of it is very basic because they lead such faith-lived lives that sometimes they don't think about the practical aspects of, TFSAs and RSPs. And, one missionary had a whole bunch of money sitting in a savings account at a bank, and literally didn't even realize that he wasn't making any money on it, right? So it's very exciting work. I need help. I really do. I need, if you can volunteer to do 1 or 2 missionary planning meetings a year, that would be a big help. And they're fun. They're interesting. You're talking to people in the Philippines. You're talking to people in Malaysia and France and things like that. So just a little pitch there, just even 1 or 2 a year, and you'll have a lot of fun.
I find it very, very interesting to see how God positions each and every one of us for a specific time and for a specific role. It's exciting to see that, and it's exciting to see all of you guys in some form of community. And so I enjoy doing this and having some of you share. The problem is the time gets away from us. I scheduled it for 45 minutes and we're already 49 minutes. So, John, I'm going to throw it over to you, and then we're going to wrap up. And my honest goal was to get you done before the hour was up. So I had good intentions. I have good intentions. John.
I'm just going to say this is really exciting. I love this. This is something that I have been doing probably for the better part of 7 or 8 years. And I have a number of churches that have invited me to speak to young adults, and parents and groups. There's so much opportunity here. And one of the ways I got a start on it is just sitting down with a pastor, and he says, I'm just not, I'm biblically literate enough to give direction, but I'm not biblically literate enough with the financial backing to give some real clear, comprehensive statements. And you have this designation. Why don't we tag team? And so we sat on a stage, and for an hour and a bit, he just did a Q&A. It was actually supposed to be for 45 minutes. And the church kind of just had so many questions that the service just kept going on and on and on until we kind of said, okay, yeah. There's so much demand, and it's good to see others who are feeling the same. God is obviously moving, because he wouldn't be enabling, equipping, and encouraging so many of us to be doing this. So this is exciting.
This is exciting indeed. And I think what you shared, John, is kind of the ideal way to do it. Pastor with advisor to talk about these sorts of things. And I just think it's powerful what is happening. And I can't wait to see the end result of all of this. Whether I will see it or not, I don't know. But what's the next year going to look like? What's the next 2 years going to look like? There's a big horizon in front of us, that's for sure. So I just want to encourage all of you to keep the faith, stay engaged. I also want to say thank you for your supporting this work and standing behind it. Continue as well to use your designation for God's glory. It's not about you, of course. It's not about us. It's about him and his kingdom. And I think he challenges us all the time, stretches us to do something that maybe it wasn't necessarily part of your plan coming into the year, but God uses someone or something to come into your life to direct you in a certain way. And Lord, help us recognize that plan when it comes before us. So I'm looking forward to seeing at least 15 of you, maybe not necessarily all on this call, but 15 champions in Florida. Jonathan, I'm going to ask if you would really wrap up our time in prayer. There's lots of conversation in the chat as well, and I appreciate your input. Love to know how often you would like to have a call like this. Maybe it's a couple of times a year. Maybe it's 3 times a year. I don't know. Love to have your thoughts. If you found value from this, please let me know when we're in conversation or pop me an email, whatever. I'm here to facilitate this kind of thing and to move this, to advance this work forward. Jonathan, final thoughts and wrap us in prayer, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Heavenly Father, we don't bring anything to the work that you're doing except our sin. And I'm just so thankful, Lord, that you are the great Redeemer. You are the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. You don't even need us to really do anything except show up with a willing heart. And I just pray that every person here that is a champion for faith-based financial services, that has a desire to know your word, apply your word, obey your word, and encourage others to do the same, that you would open doors, that you would create possibilities, that you would set the tone and the pace, and at times even put a governor on us if we are overly impetuous or enthusiastic. But most importantly, Lord, I pray that you would be glorified, that whatever we do, even if it's heading off in the wrong direction, that you ultimately would use it for your glory. And just continue to bring us into a deeper place of submission in our own personal lives and our marriages and relationships. Father, it's no good Monday to Friday to go to work for you and then not be pursuing our wives or our husbands or our children, or trying to disciple our friends and those that you've entrusted, Lord. So I pray that we would live out the gospel. We would be exemplary in representing you, that we would have a very healthy fear and respect of you, Lord, and what your son did on the cross for us, and that we would go forward with great passion, with the fruits of the Spirit absolutely on display for your glory constantly. And it's only by your Spirit that we can even hope to do that, Lord. So just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I will say, Ian, we will get back to you on the hot dog champion. Ian is speaking at our conference in May, so I suspect you will hear some of that there. How's that? Dr. Sophia Kusik is also going to be a speaker at our event in May. As well, I've asked Gordon Wusick to be part of it, and I don't know how many of you know Gord, but he is a connection with Ron Blue, in many respects. He's basically Ron Blue's age, and he has so much wisdom to share around the whole wealth transfer thing. So I think it's going to be a marvelous event. You will all be notified. Registration hopefully will open next week, and we can get you gathered for that event on the 29th. Thanks very much, everyone, for your time. Have a great day. See many of you next month.